just been looking at the crazy drone picture from pics by Pedro, and also the Abandoned Scotland pics from Mitch Brooklyn, and it's just heartbreaking to see what the ABC has become and what it's going to become. So I just thought I would share some memories of the venue, and the demolition begins this week. It's began. One of Scotland's most iconic venues. And yeah, let's just talk about some thoughts about the place, what I remember about the place, from the ABC, which is the big room, and the smaller room, which is the ABC 2, which for many years was a linchpin in Glasgow's music scene. For many, many years, and before that, I think it was many things. I think it was a cinema, but all a bit before my time. I only remember it as being a music venue. I can't remember the first time I was there, but I enjoyed countless gigs, club nights as a punter, and a few as a performer and a promoter as well. I never played the big stage, but we played the ABC2 a few times. Actually, that's not technically true. I played the big stage. I did play the big stage, technically. I was Loki's generic hype man during his Scottish Album of the Year performance when he had a full band with him. I think it was Loki and the Cartel, or the Cartoon Cartel. I think by the time we went on stage, it was Loki and the Cartel, and Becky Wallace was bitching the hook, and I was generic hype man, where I managed to get Prosecco networking trending. I just came straight from Knockengorrick Festival, and it was at the time, if anyone remembers, I had a vocal polyp, so my voice was it was quite deep, very deep, too deep. And then when you added a festival of drinking and smoking and performing, then I basically had no voice at all. But for what I lacked in vocal cords, I made up in a sort of misplaced confidence, because just before the band came on stage, I went in to do the introduction, and this is the Scottish Album of the Year thing, and I announced my band as the winner. I think I said, I'm from the future.
The winner of the 2016 Album of the Year Award, Scottish Album of the Year Award, is Who Took Utopia by the Gyro Babies.
Had a confused response. Maybe a couple of people cheered. Most people didn't know who the fuck I was. And I do wonder if that maybe did affect us getting longlisted the following year. I don't know. But I nearly played it a second time with Colonel Mustard and the Dijon 5 and Bomb Scare were both playing. I was definitely supposed to cameo with Colonel Mustard. Maybe Bomb Scare as well, because I did used to join Bomb Scare for a couple of tunes way back in the day. But I was running the after party at the art school a few yards away. Well, on Google Maps, it's a few yards away, but it's a very steep hill. Anyone who's done that before will know. But it's very close. In fact, the fire that destroyed the ABC started at the art school. So that's how close the art school is to the ABC. So I've been setting things up for the after party, and I've dived down to jump on stage, and security wouldn't let me. Because while I was setting up the after party, I'd missed the bit where didn't get the memo that we needed a security pass, and I didn't have one. And the bouncer refused to let me get anywhere near the stage. So as my song's playing out, I'm like, come on. I realised that I'd missed my chance because the song was playing and the guy wasn't for changing his mind. And then I think I said something like, is it more than your job's worth? And at that point, I was ejected from the ABC. So I didn't get to play that night. But it didn't spoil the night. We had a great night at the late night sketchy Christmas special. One of my other favourite moments was I got to open up for and support for Oxjam Bronson, who's actually very famous now. He's a famous MC, but he did a Damn That Tastes Good, what's it called? Shit That Tastes Delicious or something like that, which is a Vice show that went that went viral online. So he's kind of like a food critic now. There's many things that he does. But Action Bronson was hilarious that night. He was walking around with a wireless microphone because he doesn't like stage. In his words, I can't do his accents, but Action Bronson doesn't like stage. So he's just wandering around with a wireless mic, rapping his arse off. And he actually went into the toilet at one point, had a pish, and you could hear him pissing through the big PA. And that was a great night, and it was great to be on stage. I was just part of like a kind of cypher. I don't think it was planned or anything like that. But you had Louis, Tongue Acrobats, and Doonhammer, I think, were on that night as well. And that was very, very, very early on in Jackal Trades. That was me trying to do sort of more hip hop music. So it was a great experience to do that, although I wouldn't have been very good. I'm pretty sure I wasn't very good. But I want to give a shout out to Bunty, because when I think of the ABC, I do think of Bunty, because he brought so many big hitters from the USA, so many big names from England, and he gave a spotlight on a lot of local talent to support these big names that came to Glasgow. And especially the Badmouth battles nights, which were crazy. The big one that sticks out is the Jinx versus Loki rematch, which is a hardcore grudge match battle rap, and the atmosphere was absolutely electric, man. The Badmouth nights were always great. They initially I was the original booker for Pivo when they started there, and the first two were so successful with queues round the block, people couldn't get in, that I had to move to a bigger venue. And then Bunty took it to the next level in that bigger venue. When the Badmouth battles finished, there was always an amazing hip-hop night after it. So it was really good times, and I don't think that the hip-hop scene in Scotland's really recovered from the ABC not being there, because, you know, you don't really hear of local talent supporting the big names when they come over anymore. So I think it's not, you don't realise what you've got till it's gone, but I think we've got to show our appreciation for Bunty, who's a phenomenal DJ, producer, for him making those connections and giving so many artists a platform on that stage. But yeah, I did also play the ABC2 with the Gyro Babies. It was a charity night, the Ball from Nepal. I did that. I think John McKinley filmed it all, the full set, so I think you can find that on YouTube if you give a shit. And also played a full Jackal Trade set after I'd released an album. I think that was an Oxjam night. That was Lindsay McGee who booked me for that one. Shouts to her. That was a great night too. And there was a few gigs I did as a promoter. I remember Slamboree played the ABC. We were doing the after party with Slamboree sound system. It broadcast across the road. That I remember that being a good one as well. And as a punter, just as somebody that liked going to gigs, ABC was just the perfect size to get your up and coming touring acts in the ABC2, and then your bigger, more mainstream acts in the main room. And the one that stands out was Albama 3. I was there with Gordy Duncan. It was Gordy's dad's favourite band, and we were watching that in awe. R.I.P. Jake. Jake was still around. And my Gyro Babies were playing the after party as well. I think it was at River that night, if I remember rightly. But it was just it was an amazing night just to see Albama 3 playing a sold out ABC, knowing that we were doing the after party. And then you know, meeting all the band after as well. And I think we even got a jam with Larry Love that night. And that was a magical moment. And when Albama 3 are on form, I don't think there's many better bands on the planet. So that stands out. Brian Jonestown Massacre, another one that comes to mind. I'm a huge fan of them. And I actually ended up backstage briefly, but I'll maybe keep that one for the autobiography. But that was the first time I've ever seen them live after being a fan for decades probably. And that was amazing. And weirdly, Vulfpeck as well, that sticks in my mind. That was a crazy night because that it was like a Nathan Barley hipster convention. Everyone had twirly moustaches. They kind of played jazz funk music, so it was quite, the hipsters were attracted to it. And it was sold out because they just went viral for releasing Sleepify, which was a 10-track silent album on Spotify in order to raise funds for a free tour. The album generated £20,000 in royalties over a 2-month period. Subsequently, Spotify removed the album, stating that it violated their terms of content. Shoutouts to Vulfpeck for finding a loophole, a Spotify loophole, and then giving it back to the fans. That was actually sold out that night. I think, if I remember rightly, we just turned up with a camera and said that we worked for a magazine in order to get in, if I remember rightly, that night. Gordy can fill me in with that one, but Gordy did remind me about that recently. But it was something like, we just walked in with a camera and said we were there to film it, and they let us in. So, I know that I don't really come off in any of these stories as particularly good, but this was all a long time ago when I was really young, and I'm just being honest, it is what it is. I'm trying not to, embellish anything. But yeah, I'd like to know what your memories are of the building. What was the best bands you ever seen there? I'd like you to share your memories in the comments if you can. It was an institution, and it's been away for a while now, but I think there's something quite final about seeing the demolition team arriving on Sauchiehall Street. It's sad that something as important to our community has yet again had a mysterious fire shortly after being refused planning permission. What a place where our favourite bands and DJs played is now going to be expensive student flats. And Sauchiehall Street's in a lot of trouble right now. I mean, that was the heart of Glasgow for many years. And it's been looking like a demolition site. Not just this week, it's been looking like a demolition site for years due to various fires, renovations, roadworks. And also, by the way, the old campus building also got burnt down, which was kind of like a cheap student club that disappeared. I hear that has reopened as a new venue for live music, food, comedy, entertainment, but I've not been there yet, and I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. But I'm looking forward to checking that out. And yeah, I just support your local venues, man. Now, this is the bit where most people would say, like, subscribe, and join my Patreon at patreon.com/YouCallThatRadio. But that's something that I would never, ever, ever do.